In this video, we're going to go through a benchmarking exercise using a major industrial unit. It turned out really well, and I'm excited to walk you through it. It's a way to use production and quantities to get a solid benchmark. Before I do, I'd like to tell you a story. It was the summer of 2022. We had just decided to go for a hike out of our campsite in Minnesota at a campsite called Spirit Mountain. The camping and hiking in Minnesota in the summers is just gorgeous. So we took off as my wife, 3-year-old daughter, and a little white dog, Olaf. We headed out the back of our campsite to this large area that's used for cross country skiing in the winter. And it's a series of concentric circles. I didn't bring much with me, even though I am an Eagle Scout. I just decided it was going to be a short hike. I had some water. As we started to get into these trails, I began to get a little lost, and the map I took on my phone didn't reference the campsite, and the trail markings were more designed for the ski season. And so eventually I was getting a little bit worried because we didn't have a whole lot of water left and the sun was setting. And I did realize I had a compass on my phone with an app. I pulled that out. I realized where I thought we were, which of these concentric trails I thought we were on, where we needed to go to get back to the where I thought the campsite was. So I used my compass and hiked due north off this cleared trail into grass that was waist deep. I remember looking down and seeing Olaf's tail just barely wagging in the grass. My daughter was on my back, and we just trudged our way through this tall grass. All the while, I'm just praying that we're going to get to a trail, another cleared area that would take us back to our campsite, which we did. And we got back to our campsite and everything ended well. I'm telling you this story because traditional benchmarking, where you're just using schedules and durations of a as-built schedule, is a bit like having your head buried in the map and not understanding where true north is. True north is your progress picture and your quantities. And like everything we do at Day1Model, it starts with the discipline, hour and quantity built up to the unit. And that major unit is a building block for the rest of your project. And those disciplines start and end in a flow which is predictable. And so for our benchmarking, we're going to look at a unit that I've consolidated into the major disciplines here. We had 2,000, I think, data points is what I started with. But you have to make sense of this. And I caution against getting too detailed because then nobody's going to really understand and be able to follow this story. So the story is you have structural, pipe mechanical, electrical, and instrumentation, then your major ancillary trades, fireproofing, insulation, and paint. I knew what we had estimated and knew what the hours actually were. I knew the quantities, tons of steel, feet of pipe, and lineal feet of power and instrument cable. So here's your actual unit rate. So that's your first key building block. And so then you look at your progress data and you can get when that progress started in relation to the start date of that project, and then get your staggers, which is key. So you start steel, you start pipe, you start power and instrumentation, cable tray, and then your follow-on trades. And now you do the same with your completion. And then you have your date structure, which you see here. You can see the date structure very clearly, that those lags. So everybody can track what's going on at this point. And equally important is when you're looking at that progress data, you can see that you don't start on day one with 100 people or 1,000 people craft. And you don't build up to a peak and then let go of everybody, then bring them all back unless you've misplanned or there's some outlying reason. And so progress goes very predictably in a trapezoidal fashion. You build up to a peak with a certain amount of weeks to get to that peak. You hold the peak and then you ramp down the peak. And so here we're looking at that progress data and getting the ramp up and ramp down for each of those disciplines. Steel has a long ramp down because when you get done with primary, you spend a lot of the job still working on your tertiary and even secondary. I don't have civil in this benchmark, but I do know it took 9 months from the start of pile driving to the first steel. So that's part of the benchmark. You can see that holdout right here. Now you apply new quantities, which gives you a new set of hours. You have everything you need to start benchmarking. Now we're going to go to the day one model. And the key here is looking at these peaks. We've already programmed in the ramping up and the ramping down. We have the hours, which you can see here. Now we just go discipline by discipline and we get those completion dates. So you're at day 20, you want to see 750. So you move this out. I think it's 49 days. And now you see your new completion date. You can see the model is modeling out. This is a US based project. So you can see Thanksgiving, Christmas holidays, some reduced production before and after those events, and then your major holidays throughout the year. And then you do the same for pipe. I think it's 105 days to get down to your 6,300 hours per week peak. And you can see the ramping up. Now you're hitting another holiday season. And so you do that for each discipline here. Then you have new completion dates. Now you go in to edit your timeline and start to drag these out to January 25th on this one, your structural, your pipe, April 5th. You can go into your data too and just type these numbers in, May 10th. And then you got May 17th. So now you can see if you're benchmarking these projects and you want to keep the same variables, that it's a very clear May 31st to benchmark to. And what Day1Model allows you to do is start to run scenarios. So just a quick one you might want to run is, okay, let's say we have a 50% risk of a hurricane. We're on the Gulf. You can see that push down of the hurricane here where you're safing out, leaving the site, coming back. Here's the other season. Just looking at pipe, your peaks now are higher because you're pushing down progress for those risks. And I think it's 133 days. You're going to move that out. Now you're back at your 6,300 with your hurricanes, your holidays, all that. You're ramping up. And so that's how you benchmark. And you hop back in here. You might create another copy of this slide and call it 50% risk of a hurricane. We'd love to take your project historical data, benchmark it within the model, and give you this clear picture. It's the foundation is the same. It's hours, quantities, discipline flows to the major unit, stack your major units. Reach out at info@day1model.com. We'd love to talk to you.